here in Central Texas. We're office out of Waco, and we have a shelter, emergency shelter in Waco, but we actually serve 8 counties in Central Texas. So it's a pretty large area, about geographically the size of Hawaii, 500,000 people, so there's a lot that goes on. So, quick question. So when it comes to domestic violence, I'll preface it. So there's a lot of different types of domestic violence or what we consider. So domestic violence could be abuse between like a husband and a wife, a boyfriend, girlfriend, could include child abuse, could even include things like roommates or other family members in the household. But a lot of what we end up dealing with is what's called intimate partner violence, which is like husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. And so when we're thinking about that, how many women do you think in their lifetime will experience an abusive relationship? Any guesses? 3,000?
1 in every 4.
Like 1 out of how many?
Every 4. 1 in every 4.
4? 8 out of 10? 1 out of 3. 1 out of 3? Yeah, so nationally it's about 1 in 4. However, in Texas, it's about 1 out of 3. So when you think about like your school, your church, your workplace, and think about all the women in that setting, we took about 1/3 at some point in their life, either in the past, in the present, or in the future, because that number of people could potentially be experiencing abuse in a relationship. Now, for men, that number is about 1 in 7. So it happens to men as well. My agency actually works with both men and women who are experiencing abuse. And when we think about abuse, abuse is a lot more than just simply physical violence. Of course, physical violence is definitely abusive, but abuse can also include verbal abuse or emotional abuse, financial abuse, where one person has total control over the finances, doesn't allow the other person to have any input or say in that. It includes things like isolation, so cutting them off from friends or family, not allowing them to have a car, not allowing them to have access to a phone, things like that.
Okay.
And so what ties all these different types of abuse together is the desire for power and control. So that's really what we talk about when we're talking about abuse, is where one person is completely controlling of the other person. Okay? So family abuse here, that's what we exist to combat. So I just want to take a 1-800 number. That is available 24 hours a day for anyone to call in to find out more information about our services, or to find out, how can I get help if I'm in this situation. As far as the services that we offer, I mentioned we have an emergency shelter. That is located in Waco, and it is at an undisclosed location, so you won't ever see our physical address published anywhere. So even on our pamphlet on the back, it just has our P.O. box listed. And that's just for the safety of our clients, because a lot of our clients are trying to escape dangerous situations where they don't want to be found by their intimate partner or by their family, and so that's a safe place where we can have them and keep them safe from whatever they're trying to escape from. We also offer free counseling services, and so for either adults or children who've experienced abuse. We offer free case management services, so trying to get a person back up on their feet. Because if they've been in a relationship defined by power and control, they might need a lot of help for trying to go back to school or get a job or find affordable housing. So our case managers can help locate resources for that. And then I actually oversee our legal advocacy program. So we have legal advocates who can help with a lot of different legal needs. So whether it's helping to file a police report for a crime that's occurred, helping apply for a protective order, applying for crime victims compensation if they qualify for getting reimbursed for expenses related to the crime, or even if they need to establish custody because there's kids involved as well. We can help them get linked up with an attorney for free or low cost representation in areas of family law. So that's what our legal advocates do. So those are kind of our direct services, and so obviously anyone staying at our shelter can receive those, but it's good to note that a person doesn't have to stay at the shelter to receive those services. We have all our outreach services. So for example, if there's someone here in Axtell who call us and maybe they didn't need to come to shelter, but they wanted to receive counseling or needed to talk to a legal advocate, then they could either come to Waco to our offices to meet with a counselor or legal advocate, or if need be, if they didn't have transportation, we can actually come out to their community and meet with them as well. So we have rural advocates who travel out to pretty much anywhere in our 8-county service area to meet with clients and do case management and counseling and legal advocacy with them. The last part of what we do is community outreach and education. So things, events like this, trying to get the word out about, what is domestic violence, doing education around that, as well as also educating about, here's the services that are available for when this unfortunately does happen. So both prevention and education. And so for one of the things that we typically do is we also have like an annual conference in the fall. So I see lots of people in purple, which I think is amazing, because if you didn't know, purple is the color for domestic violence awareness. And domestic violence awareness month is in October, so we get to compete against pink and breast cancer awareness. So when it gets to October, feel free to alternate between pink and purple. That'd be great. But that's usually when we have our annual conference, so that does a lot of training about, for professionals about here's how to deal with domestic violence situations. And so, any questions about our services or anything that we do? Explained everything perfectly.
Thank you.
Well, if you do ever have any questions, you've got a pamphlet there, and feel free to call our office number. And hopefully this doesn't happen too often, but if you do find yourself working with someone who's in an abusive relationship, definitely make sure to pass on our information to them, so that way they know that there are resources and people who are there to help them. So thanks again for putting this on.
Is it just one family abuse center in Waco? Is it just one?
Yeah, so we are the only domestic violence shelter in our 8-county service region. You also have Advocacy Center in Waco, but they deal with sexual assault and also like child abuse cases, whereas we tend to deal more with your intimate partner violence. And Advocacy Center doesn't have a shelter, whereas we do.
How many people do you have?
Yeah, so we have 63 beds in our shelter, so we can house up to that, and actually we can go beyond that if we need to. So, for example, if every single bed is full, and we get a person or a family that calls us who's in immediate danger, then we have like a family room we can also shut down, basically convert into some living areas. We don't thankfully have to do that too often.
You ever have any men that stay there?
Mm-hmm. Not very often, but yeah, usually a couple times a year we'll have a male who comes into shelter, and we have a separate room that's segregated from the rest of the rooms.
What is the time frame that you stay there?
Yeah, so we are set up as a 2-week shelter, but that being said, our average length of stay is right about 30 days. Because the way we work that program is at the end of 2 weeks, they meet with their case manager and they set goals with their case manager while they're at shelter. And as long as they're making progress towards those and there's a valid reason for them to stay longer, then we usually have no problem extending their stay.
So after 30 days, the case managers, do they try to help them to go through, like, find a job and stuff like that?
Yeah, so as soon as they come into shelter, they're linked, paired up with a case manager, and that's what they're doing. They set goals if they're okay. Beyond shelter, what is your long-term plan? So helping them find a job if they need that. Also, we have several transitional housing programs that they might be eligible for, so maybe it's applying for one of those. And if they don't qualify for one of those programs, then trying to help them link up with Housing Authority or Passion Ministries or other housing programs in Waco.
How many kids that are in school?
Yeah, so.
How do you link them to a school that they would be located, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so the question is like for, say a woman comes in with her kids, how do you deal with school? So we have a children's coordinator who's in charge of all that. And so if they're coming from outside of the Waco area, then our children's coordinator helps them get enrolled in Waco schools. If they need to change schools, we do that. For the kids that are staying at the shelter, we do have buses that come by from the school districts in the Waco area. And our kids are the first ones picked up at the shelter and the last ones dropped off, so that way no other kids know where they're going. Yeah, that's one of the primary goals of our children's coordinators, to make sure that the kids that are staying at the shelter don't fall behind, and if anything, that maybe they exceed more than they were in that abusive situation.
So if they were in the Waco school district and you need to relocate them somewhere else, you all would.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what our children's coordinator works to try to balance safety and also the needs of the kids. Yep.
When it makes someone no qualify for, like a housing, if they're there and really they're looking for, what's the next thing?
The biggest thing is funding. If we had unlimited funding, we would love to accept everyone, but we only have so many slots, so that's what there are certain, and like for example, one of our housing programs is for like people that have some kind of like disability. And then there's also depends on like length of stay and income levels and things like that. I'm not one of the housing case managers, so I can't answer exactly, but it all depends